Good afternoon as we wait for the camera to quit shaking. Welcome back. It is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. And every time I come across a day where it's like, oh, there can't be any fewer drivers or cards or events of significance that have happened on this date, uh, then the next date always sticks its hand up and says, no, look at me. So I've got three events. Two of them are significant. One isn't, but I wanted to have more than just two events because I've only got two drivers with cards, and that's really all the birthdays of any drivers of any sort of fame, I guess you could say. Um, on this date in 1987 at Talladega, Davey Allison wins, and the race was called 10 laps short of the finish because of darkness, and it was delayed during the race because of a little crash that happened that involved his father, Bobby Allison. Of course, this is one of the most infamous accidents at Talladega. Bobby Allison coming through the trioval on the 22nd lap, ironic it was his car number as well, actually blew the engine, and the engine detonated so badly that it broke the harmonic balancer off the crankshaft and spit it out the bottom of the engine. He hit it with the right rear tire, which caused it to explode immediately. He lost control and very nearly ended up in the grandstands. Um, Plenty of footage of that crash can be found on YouTube, but I remember watching it live as a 10-year-old, and just the violence of it, and that was something that they talked about in the pre-race on that show is violence and big crashes, and just ironic that it happened that day. Of course, that eventually led to the restrictor plates and now the tapered spacers on the speedways to keep the cars under 200 miles an hour, but unfortunately it causes the pack racing, which has large crashes frequently. Our second event, 1992, also at Talladega, Davey Allison won. And again, this is the event that really just wasn't significant. It kind of added to Davey's hot and cold 92 season where he was either winning or crashing and getting hurt. And this race had kind of a crazy crash where Jimmy Spencer got together, I want to say, with Wally Dallenbach on the backstretch. And it was one of the last races for the initial Travis Carter team, the 98 car. And when he spun around, the air got under the car. It almost turned over, and it landed back on all four wheels. And Jimmy drove off to the pits. Thought he was going to continue, but apparently there was more damage done to the suspension and stuff, and he couldn't continue. Our third event, also pretty significant, on this date in 2008. So that's been 15 years ago. Wow. Clint Bowyer won at Richmond. That's not really the big deal that happened. Dale Jr. dominated this race, and yesterday's birthday boy, Kyle Busch, took him out. And, of course, it made Kyle the most hated man in America for about a month, I guess. And Dale Jr. did get him back a couple races later at Richmond. But, pretty significant because Dale was on a pretty big losing streak at the time. He was driving for Hendrick. I believe that was his first season driving for Hendrick. And it looked like he was going to finally break that, I think it was almost 3-year losing streak, because his last couple years at DEI were horrible. So anyway, I talked about it. We have two birthdays today. Both are open wheel veterans, but from very opposite forms of open wheel racing. And strangely enough, both were born on this date in 1956. So I'll start off with the one that I knew of first. Raced primarily in IndyCar, and later in his career did move to NASCAR. Ran for Rookie of the Year in 1988, but was pulled out of the car early in the season. Mr. Ed Pimm. Of course, here he is with the Skull Bandit. I believe he was a teammate to Tom Sneva for a while in the IndyCar series. Kind of just a journeyman driver. This is his, 1980... This is the 86. This is going to be his 85 results. And it looks like Michigan, he had a best finish of third. But that race was a race of attrition generally, so a lot of drivers would get their best career finishes in that race. And up next, a driver that, in my opinion, should make NASCAR's top 75 best drivers, but probably won't because he's not in the top 2 or 3 series. But he is a 5-time modified champion, Mr. Tony Hirschman. So we have a 97. I believe this is his rookie. I may have to look. He may have a rookie in 96. I can't remember, but I pulled these two out of the album that I recently picked up, the volume 1 of the Flea Market Find videos. But Tony Hirschman, modified driver, and I want to say he is a spotter for one of the JGR cars now. But Tony Hirschman, Ed Pimm, same month, same date, same year. So not very often. And two open wheel guys. That's kind of cool too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Like I said, we didn't have a lot to cover, but we did have a lot to talk about. Always enjoy going back in the NASCAR archives, especially talking about these things that happened way back when, like the Bobby Allison crash. I can talk for hours about just that race alone, because it was a lot of odd things happened in that race that day. But anyway, appreciate you watching. Make sure you come back tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to rip. Like we always say on this video, I'm not sure what we're going to rip, but we got something. It's just, we just kind of do it on the fly. So thanks again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.